Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're doing a bit of detective work. We're tracking down an invisible, ancient threat that's been absolutely terrorizing farming communities in Bangladesh. We're going to walk through a fascinating, if a bit terrifying scientific investigation into a pathogen that hides right beneath our feet, just waiting for the perfect moment to strike.
Let's kick things off with a pretty staggering number, over 600. That's how many human cases were diagnosed up to the year 2011 alone. And that really sets the stakes here, because we're looking at a very real, ongoing public health crisis. This isn't just some abstract scientific anomaly sitting isolated in a laboratory somewhere. It's a severe issue that's directly affecting the lives, the health, and the livelihoods of everyday farmers who depend entirely on their livestock to survive.
Locally, this disease goes by the name torca, and it truly strikes fear into these communities. It's not just an agricultural headache, it's a zoonotic killer. That means it spills over from animals directly into human populations. While we usually think of anthrax exclusively as a livestock issue, its ability to cross over and infect the humans who live, sleep, and work just yards away from these animals, that makes it a massive public health threat that we absolutely have to pay attention to.
Section 1. The ecological cycle. Sleeper agents in the soil. To actually solve this mystery, we really need to understand our culprit. The pathogen operates in this incredibly patient, deadly loop. Step 1. The spores lie completely dormant in alkaline, calcium-rich soil. They act almost like microscopic sleeper agents. Then, step 2, grazing livestock accidentally ingest these spores while foraging for food. In step 3, the bacteria basically wake up and rapidly multiply inside the host, which inevitably kills the animal. And finally, step 4, and this is where the public health crisis truly begins, when that animal's carcass is improperly disposed of, it returns a massive new generation of spores right back to the earth.
Section 2. Hunting the source, the medical mystery.
Okay, so with cases rising, local authorities and international scientists teamed up to track down exactly where these outbreaks were coming from. And their prime suspect? Imported cattle feed. A lot of folks suspected that contaminated bone meal was secretly introducing the pathogen to otherwise healthy herds. And conceptually, it made a ton of sense. Maybe the disease was being shipped in from outside the country by unaware suppliers, but in science, you've got to follow the data.
And the data here, it completely debunked the imported feed myth. When researchers tested 91 samples of imported bone meal, guess how many came back positive? 0. Not a single trace. But when they randomly tested 73 local soil samples from homesteads and burial sites across the affected regions, 10 were highly positive for anthrax. So the threat wasn't being shipped in at all. It was already there, deeply embedded in the environment.
Section 3. The soil connection, danger beneath their feet. The true danger was lurking right beneath them the whole time. By testing the soil, researchers were able to map the genetic footprint of the bacteria in the most heavily affected areas, specifically the Sirajganj and Tangail districts. They actually used advanced molecular analysis to look at the very DNA of the anthrax isolated directly from the dirt, really hoping to understand exactly what kind of strain they were dealing with.
And this led to a massive breakthrough. They discovered 4 unique genotypes and 8 subgenotypes. Now, finding this much genetic variation is hard proof that the bacteria wasn't just recently introduced. Pathogens, they take time to mutate and branch out. This level of genetic diversity means it's an ecologically established local resident. It's been evolving, adapting, and honestly thriving in the local dirt over many, many generations.
So you might be wondering, how exactly does it survive out in the elements for so long? Well, it's all thanks to its exosporium. This is a specialized outer layer that literally anchors the spore to the soil particles. It's an extraordinary biological adaptation that prevents the spores from washing away in the heavy monsoon rains, keeping them clustered firmly together in high density, just waiting for an unsuspecting animal to come graze in that exact spot.
Section 4. Human health risks. When biology meets behavior.
Now this brings us to the absolutely crucial point, connecting this contaminated soil directly to the human beings who live and work on it. They're facing a terrifying triple threat from these spores. First, cutaneous. If you're a farmer forced to handle a dead, infected animal by hand, spores can easily enter through tiny, microscopic cuts on your skin. Second, pulmonary. If the dry dirt gets kicked up during daily chores, you can easily inhale the airborne spores. And third, tragically, intestinal. In areas where food is scarce, if a sick animal is butchered for food, consuming that meat leads to the deadly intestinal form of the disease. And without rapid access to antibiotics, all 3 forms can be fatal.
And here is the ticking biological clock.
When an infected animal dies and is butchered, exposing that carcass to the air triggers the bacteria to form new survival spores within just 48 hours. The very act of butchering a sick animal to salvage the meat, which, let's be real, is a desperate economic decision for a struggling family, exposes the vegetative bacteria to oxygen. And this guarantees that the surrounding soil is going to be flooded with new, highly resilient spores.
Section 5. Breaking the cycle, a human solution.
Because understanding the microbiology, that's really only half the battle. These outbreaks aren't just a science problem, they're a socio-economic tragedy. Poverty, food insecurity, and a lack of education about proper carcass disposal are what keep the soil toxic. As the research plainly states, when economic pressure forces farmers to butcher sick animals and their remains are left right where healthy animals graze, the cycle of infection and human risk is mathematically guaranteed to continue.
Ultimately, the science shows us the enemy isn't just in the soil, it's baked into the system. The genetic data prove the anthrax has been there all along, capitalizing on agricultural habits born out of pure necessity. Changing those habits through community empowerment, education, and better resources is the only way to break the cycle and save lives. So, the big question we're left with is, how can we better equip these developing communities to fight a threat they can't even see? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking the big questions.